They say artist, so you got to pick your lane. You're going to be a commercial artist, you're going to be conceptual, or you want to be in museums. Fuck that.
Why can't you do all of
Not
that?
at all. Like,
Yeah.
why can't I do a conceptual, political, or social commentary show? And why can't I do a commercial body of work? Why can't I be in a museum?
You know, there's something about Joey Brock's art that pulls you in, like a quiet conversation that suddenly turns into a shout. Joey's a Dallas-based mixed media artist, but don't let that label fool you. He weaves photography, textiles, and hand stitching into stunning portraits that aren't just about faces, they're about stories, pain, resilience, and ultimately, self-love. Joey grew up around quilting on his grandmother's Texas farm. You can see that DNA in his work. The stitching isn't just decoration, it's a powerful metaphor for the patchwork of American identities, especially queer ones, with all their scars and healing. It's tactile, intimate, and honestly, kind of revolutionary. What I love about Joey's work is how he confronts religious shame and queer identity head on. His show, Heavenly Bodies, Earthly Wounds, flips the script on queerness as sinful, reclaiming queer bodies as sacred, godly, and divine. There's an incredible centerpiece, a 6-foot fragmented scream that captures decades of frustration, trauma, and finally rage turned to beauty and affirmation. This isn't just art for art's sake. Joey's portraits are a call to self-acceptance, a fierce push against discrimination. They challenge us to see the humanity in every face and story, to quiet the noise around us and inside us. Today, expect this conversation to explore the tension between the commercial and the deeply personal, and how one man holds space for all of it, with humor, honesty, and a whole lot of heart. How are you doing today? What's your day like today?
I'm great. It's Friday, but for me, as an artist full time, weekends don't have that same concept as when you
Yep.
when I work corporate. So,
Yep.
so it's a weekend, I guess so. I mean, I feel like I work all the time, so it kind of all blurs together. But
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the day I can retire from corporate life and have
oh
that same
man,
problem.
yeah, I did corporate for 30 years, and I was happy. I got laid off. That's when I went full time artist, actually, about 5 years ago. So it took me a while to kind of break free of that mindset.
Mindset.
But it's still good to have as an artist because you need to stay focused and do your job. So
Yeah.
actually,
How,
it's been great actually to integrate that into the artist.
yeah, I was going to ask, how does your experience in the corporate world influence how you approach being an independent artist?
I
Do
think it
you do
helps.
things the same way you used to in corporate life, or how does that
I
work?
mean, it does spill over in a good way because there's so much business involved. You're like an entrepreneur, right? So staying focused, having goals, goal driven days, processes, and also good time management. I'm good at setting up meetings. I'm good at staying focused on meetings and um, networking and doing all the things that corporate life is about and changing priorities and multitasking. So that really has served me well in the art world, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes artists aren't good at that side of the world.
Hmm.
Not always, but sometimes. And so I think it helps me to be more successful in reaching goals and projects and priorities for me personally.
Yeah. So you were born in Texas and you grew up in Colorado, but
Mhm.
um, I saw an interview where you were talking about your grandfather and his primitive Baptist background. I think he was a minister. Was that in Texas? Was that in Colorado?
It was in Texas. Like we lived in a little town called outside of Hamilton on a farm. I was a farm boy,
Hmm.
and he had a church there, and also up in Fort Worth area too later on. But yeah, I grew up in the church. He was a primitive Baptist minister, which is another form of Southern Baptist, but different. He didn't preach fire and brimstone.
Uh-huh.
He never talked about gays going to hell. That wasn't the type of preacher he was. He was more about the glory of God. And he didn't do it for the money. He didn't barely made any money. He just had great faith.
Yeah.
And, but I think for me, I automatically built in that shame and worry for being gay, even though it was never brought up in with him. But I think you're always worried about letting people down, especially your grandparents and parents.
Yeah.
So he was great. I mean, obviously, it was a religion where there was no drinking, no dancing, piano playing. The music was a cappella. It's like those movies you see where they're singing and it sounds terrible, and it's country tabernacle on a hot
Hmm.
summer day. It was very much that type of environment, but there were no snakes or anything like that. So there was,
No snakes.
yeah.
How did that like how did that shape your relationship with your creative side?
Well, I think that it on some of the work that I've done, how religion impacts our community has been something that's always been on my mind
Hmm.
and something that's frustrated me due to hypocrisy. And I think, there's something wrong with religion. I have no problem with religion, but I do have a problem when it's used to other and discriminate and to demonize the LGBT plus community, because the teachings of Jesus Christ from what I was raised was not about that. And so they tend to hyper focus on our community for some reason when there's a million other things that are talked about that everyday people are doing. And
Hmm.
so it infuriates me in some ways to see that imposed on the community and affect so many of our youth and everybody in the community in a way that's filled with shame and othering. And so I like to bring attention to that and not pre, not criticize it, but maybe bring light to maybe a different perspective and to the hypocrisy of it, because I want to lift our community up. Enough people try to bring it down. So in
How
essence,
does
it might work in that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how does it like inform your work? How are you shedding that light through your work?
I guess it would start when I first started doing portrait work. The genesis of that was in 2018. I did a residency up in Brooklyn, New York, and I decided I wanted to do a self portrait. I wanted to shift my practice. I had done abstract work for many years and had a lot of success with that, but I
Hmm.
just wasn't feeling satisfied creatively, and I wanted to make a shift. And the show was called Hide or Seek: What We Hide and Reveal in Our Art. And I was like, well, maybe I'll do a self portrait. I just turned 50. So there were lots of things swirling in my head. And I wanted to kind of talk about how growing up gay in Texas during the 70s and 80s, during the AIDS crisis, growing up with a religious family, how that really affected me. And so I did a self portrait, and I had my friend take nude Polaroids of me as part
Hmm.
of the exhibition, because I also wanted to talk about body image and how that's a big thing in the community and in my own journey, not feeling good enough,
Yeah.
trying to live up to some perfect expectation, um, through trauma, right? So that was where the portrait went to, and I was very inspired by Robert Mapplethorpe, even though my work isn't like Robert Mapplethorpe's, but he gave me the courage to do nude Polaroids and say, hey, let's take a look at this and own it. And so it was inspiring to me, even though it's not as radical as what he did as far as the sexuality that he was depicting.
Yeah, no strategically placed bullwhips or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a bullwhip coming out of my anus. So. Although I've thought about recreating that in a different kind of way. I thought it would be kind of fun. But
Yeah.
anyway, I digress.
So, we could talk for a long time about growing up in Texas because
Yeah,
I
we
did the
could.
same thing, and
Yeah.
I didn't come out of the closet until my mid-20s because of all of that
There's so
shame.
much stigma,
There's
stigma,
a lot of
stigma.
stigma about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And it's
Um,
unspoken a lot of times too. It's just there. And then it is there in the environment as well, obviously. So,
yeah. Talk a little bit about your Heavenly Bodies project and how that was also a response to kind of religious shame.
yeah, well, it's a show I've been had in my mind to do for a long time, and they had approached me about doing a show for Pride Month, as we often get pegged for that rather than talk about it all year long. But we got to take those opportunities.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it. But I didn't have a lot of time to prep for the show and to do the typical weaving and heavy stitching that I do. It's very labor intensive. So I had been holding on to these photographs I did with some of my gay friends and queer friends and transgender, and they were very hyper stylized images. They kind of looked like cherubs. They were otherworldly and very ethereal looking and genderless in a way. And I've been holding on to them for about 4 years. And I thought about using them for this show. So when they offered this show to me, I said, this is the perfect time to talk about this, especially in our current climate with what's going on in the United States. And so I thought, let's do it now. And I could do straight photography, which is unusual for me, with a fabric overlay. And so I decided to take this opportunity to do this show. And it's really addressing what I just talked about, is how it's like elevating the community and reclaiming LGBT queer bodies as holy and godly and part of divinity rather than othering. So there's like a shame portion of these little boxes that were my Polaroids and some of the Polaroids from the shoot. Very raw, not that I hyper retouched the images, like their faces, everything are perfect. They're very like angelic and perfect. So I wanted them hyper retouched and their face is super smooth, but it's kind of showing that shame look peering through like almost a peephole, which can be a reference to queer sexuality too. And looking at that shame, and then the images next to it are celebrating, the queer bodies as angelic, as creatures of people of God, energy of God. And so there's kind of a push and pull with that, which is ironic that I'm doing that show in Fort Worth, really, when you think about it, because Fort Worth's a bit more conservative than Dallas. But
I think Fort Worth is a bit better on the art scene than Dallas is, though.
I think it's a very different world.
Yeah.
I've been trying to infiltrate that market, and I've started doing that, and I really like it. It's a lot more relaxed and approachable, and less posturing and, I don't know, attitude, pretentiousness.
Less dalitude.
Yeah, less dalitude. No, I think the centerpiece of the show is me screaming. It's me broken up into like 12 light boxes of me screaming. It's all fragmented together. And that I did years ago, but it's kind of like the way I felt and the frustration I felt through the years of dealing with that type of hypocrisy and dealing with discrimination and the bullying and I was bullied horribly, as many of us were. It's not mutually exclusive. But it really affected me, affected my self-esteem. During that time, we didn't have the internet. I'm really dating myself, but the internet wasn't there yet. They were just starting to do emails, or the idea of email. So there wasn't access to support systems and seeing that there are other queer people out there. There's a community out there. You're kind of on an island.
Yep.
And it's very lonely and terrifying. And then, AIDS was happening big time. When I came out, it was in full force. And so I was terrified on many levels, even sexually. It repressed me in a lot of ways. A lot of my friends pass away and die from that disease. So I think that I really wanted to talk about that. And, the religious community was really demonizing that during the AIDS crisis, that we were getting God's punishment for our lifestyle. I thought that was just so heinous.
Very much so.
And so I guess all those things have stuck with me. And so I think that's why. So the scream, which was kind of like the callus, it's very powerful. It's big. It's like 6 foot by 6 foot. And it's kind of like me screaming us out of that shame and then embodying it in these beautiful, gorgeous, ethereal, angelic, almost, they look like cooties, like cherubs.
Yeah. Very pretty.
And so, yeah. So I like beauty in my work, And so it's kind of that journey of shame to screaming us, me calling the charge of fuck this shit, this is bullshit. And then presenting us in the way we're intended, maybe all along we're intended to challenge religious views on how they approach loving thy neighbor.
Have you had many religious people experience your show and give you any feedback?
I don't think so. I mean, we had an artist talk. I had a lot of questions. I don't know if it was exposed to the people that actually needed to see it, and I didn't want to approach it you know, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you're lecturing, or I just want to recontextualize the thoughts on it
Yeah.
and maybe get a different perspective on it for people. I would have liked for it to reach more people, but we had an article on The Voice, which was great. I really appreciate them doing that for me.
Yep. That was a great article.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm glad I got it out there. It's unfortunately probably the people that I'd want to see it that would maybe take away something, but it's also about celebrating our community, and people that were subjects in that show have been disowned by their religious families for who they are. And there's a lot of pain there. And, we had conversations about it. I've done interviews with people to hold space. And, that pain is hard to watch, but it's also about like celebrating them in a beautiful way. And it's so they come and see the show and see themselves in a beautiful way, the way I see them, the way I want the world to see them.
Mhm.
And then that's also important too, is giving that back to people in our community that have been marginalized in that way. So it's more than just that. Yeah, it's very different to experience in person, and it's beautiful to see because of the scale, and the fabric overlays kind of blow. They have the image of it printed on organza.
Mhm.
So as the wind or the air conditioning vents hit it, it almost feels spiritual, like it's coming in and out. So that's what I wanted to feel
Mhm.
like they were alive and they were spirits in a way. So it's
Well,
cool.
that's a
Good.
really great segue for my next question, which was about your background in fashion merchandising, and how that influenced your textile work.
S-
Do you use that as a metaphor, or how is that influencing your art?
yeah, I mean, strangely enough, I got a degree in fashion merchandising. I did visual for a while for some companies, but I didn't end up pursuing it.
Mhm.
Just it just didn't feel right for me, the whole scene, and I ended up going into very corporate America. We're talking commercial investment banking type business. But I think I used to watch my grandmother and her sisters quilt on the farm growing up on my grandmother's farm. And I'd stay with her in the summer with my cousins. And, when we were out of school, and I grew up seeing that, it's an old high ceiling farmhouse, and they had hooks in the ceiling with rope and the big square, and they'd be sitting around it. So, growing up and seeing in that is part of my DNA. It's very part of the culture in America, but especially in Texas, and then the fashion merchandising. So there is a metaphor there. There is an
Mhm.
autobiographical aspect to it. So some of the biggest work I've done is 95 by 75. It's called American Beauty. And it's a older black woman and a young black male gay. Or I've asked Donnie, what are your pronouns? And he doesn't do that. He's just who he is. So it's very androgynous. And one half is her face, the other half is his. So it's
Okay.
really large, and it feels like a huge quilt. I mean, the whole thing is held together with stitching. So imagine four big panels sewn together to make one big face from two people. And there's an immense amount of stitching and architecture that went into it. It took, months and like 6 months to make it, and it was all done by hand. So it feels like a quilt, and it's kind of a metaphor for we're a country of a patchwork of different cultures and races and hard-worn scars and healing, if we can ever get to that point. So it is a metaphor for that, but it's also autobiographical of where I come from.
Switch gears a little bit and talk about your artistic process. You have a beautiful piece of work. I've got it up on my screen over here. I'm looking at it, and I'm probably gonna butcher the name. The Treputo,
Oh yeah, yeah. That's right.
a triptych.
It's a triptych. It's the first piece I did in the series. I actually did it for a show in New York, a
Hmm.
group show, a couple of years ago, and I've had it rolled up, waiting for its debut here. But I did Trey Puto because he looked like a big, kind of chubby cherub.
Hmm.
So of course he's got on makeup and a
A
wig.
wig.
It's kind of got an edge to it, which I like a little edge to my work. If you look over my shoulder, I like a little bit of edge.
Yep.
In my more, less commercial work. And so I just thought like they look like cherubs, like, like little mischievous, angelic, androgynous beings. And so I love that Dylan was comfortable with his shirt off and he'd done this, really intense makeup. And, the raw photos, he looks pretty rough. And then I smoothed everything out. And to create that kind of cloudy, angelic look that's around them, we actually did that with like clear painter's tarp. The
Yep.
thin you can get, and I wrapped them in it. We put lights. It was like just so not janky kind of way of photographing it, but we got a great result. And then I just went in and smoothed out everything to make it look more cloud-like.
What kind
So
of
there's been a
technical
lot of
challenges did you have with that?
well, I don't consider myself a photographer per se. I'm a mixed media artist, and so I had to kind of use the tools at hand, but it worked. It worked,
Yeah.
and they were very committed and invested and performative. So it was a great marriage of their creativity and their you know openness to be themselves and their fashion creative side. So there was a fashion mail element to it because they're very fashionable too. So
Hmm.
it's kind of full circle with that. And I've had some people say they look like you know they look like fashion images, kind
They
of
do.
in a
They
weird kind
do.
of way. Yeah.
How do you think maybe this is too esoteric, but how do you think the Mylar and the obscuring and revealing kind of affects the message of the final piece?
Well, I mean, in this show, I only had like 5 pieces that were actually Mylar and my stitching and usual way of doing it, and the rest were straight photographs that were printed on canvas, and then I did the overlay, stitched it in, and it was hanging from a cleat, and so it actually worked out great because I wanted them to move.
Hmm.
But the Mylar, I love working with Mylar. I don't think I've seen anyone do it quite the way I do it. And the stitching part comes into effect because Mylar is a non-porous synthetic material, so adhesives don't work on it. Because it's semi-transparent, you'd see it. But it also gives me an opportunity to layer because you can see everything ghosting through from layers back. So when I'm creating a piece, I think sometimes when people see it online, they don't realize the architecture that goes into it. If I want the face to show and not be blended away with other imagery that's behind it, because it's usually other layers of images,
Hmm.
I have to like put something white or I use vinyl mesh. It gives it a texture to make their face pop forward. And because everything's held together architecturally with thread, I have to think about how it all holds together. And I've done pieces where there's 5 layers of Mylar and there might be a Yupo painted piece in and a postcard. I mean, all kinds of different mixed media. And I've got to hold all that together and then stitch it down. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Although when you first look at it, you might not realize it. That's okay. I want you to dissect it, and you can do that when you see them in person. It's a
Yeah. I
very
look
different experience.
forward to that. You did mention that you're really more of a mixed media artist. What inspired your shift from kind of photography into this uh, balance of conceptual design and experimentation with different materials?
Well, I had worked with Mylar when I did abstract work years ago. And I'd already been playing with it and painting on it, and graphite's really sexy. You can smoke it on there. It's just, I think it's a sexy material. Plus, just being able to layer it and the flexibility that you can do with it, I like. It's problematic in a lot of ways, But once you kind of figure it out, it's pretty cool to work with. But um, and I lost my train of thought where I was going with this. Um,
How you went
15-year
from
old.
photography to
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had dabbled with the photography kind of being an element in my abstract work. I would
Mhm,
photograph actually some of these walls in the neighborhood years ago and get some of those raw graffiti moments and mix that in with my abstract painting. So I was already doing that,
mhm.
but it was in a very abstracted way. And so I guess when you look at my history and my work, if you really study it, you can see how I progressed to this place. If you really look at it, a lot of people go,
Yeah,
"You've changed so much." And maybe I have in the subject matter, but you can see the progression of how I got here.
yeah. Um, how do you how do you blend kind of the personal and the political themes, which maybe not necessarily political, but religious, which
I
can
mean,
be political.
yeah.
How do you blend those into your art?
I mean, I don't do the religious thing a lot. Like, obviously, this show was very focused on that, but typically
Mhm,
it's not. In past shows, it's been, I did this one show called The One Portrait Project, which is my
mhm,
first step into doing portrait work. And it was kind of a social practice where I would ask people to, if they wanted to participate, and I would ask them, have you been discriminated against? Um, Give me an example of that. Um, how did it make you feel? And so I had all walks of life. It wasn't just LGBT. It was, you know, by the end of it, I probably interviewed 70 people. And it was race, sexual orientation, transgender, social economic, discrimination within race, discrimination against uh, ageism, hate. I mean, it was just all over the board. And everybody, whether it was a straight older man or, you know, everybody had something that had affected them that you didn't think had. And it was interesting. And people, I do this interview with them and recorded it, and they get very emotional. And they just, I don't think some people had ever been asked how they feel about it and given space for them to talk about it. So it's very eye opening to me how much pain so many people are carrying. And I think the way our country is with the way people are
yeah.
acting and stuff, the trauma is deep on all levels for all different types of.
Was the
So it was,
goal to capture that emotion about how did that make you feel on in the photo as you asked them that?
yeah, with the photos, I just did an iPhone photo. Just I had them take their top off, or if it was a girl, it was a bra. But I wanted them bare shoulders, like raw
Mhm,
and exposed. And it was no smiling. It was just a straight, almost like a mugshot. And they were
mhm.
all the same, just very stoic looking. I wanted to be confronting. And in the show, I had them on rotation in a video. So I had multiple screens with just one face coming to the other and to the other. And the most interesting part was when you look at all the people in the human race, we're all so different. We all look so fucking different. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah,
and yet we're all the same in so many ways too.
right, right. I mean,
Because as you discover, everybody's dealing with something in terms of discrimination. Obviously, everybody deals on it at different degrees and different levels, but
sure,
yeah.
sure. And so the show really went about a broader subject matter. It wasn't just focused on it. Of course, it started with my experience of discrimination as a gay man, and there were plenty of queer voices that were in there, but there was so many other interesting moments. It was very eye opening to me.
It had a
Discrimination
very
against
Richard
race.
Avedon-esque, um, look to it, the way you took the portraits.
Yeah, it was
Um,
like people didn't like their portraits, and I said, "I'm not trying to make you look good in this. This is
I'm not trying to
art.
make you look bad, but I'm
I
trying
mean,
to
this is just raw. There
this
was
is
no
just
retouching,
raw.
and they all had to sign a waiver, so they didn't have a choice once they signed. But and then I made my first kind of portraits out of them with the stitching and the mylar and all that. And well, a funny story, my mentor out of New York, that when I did that self portrait, he goes, "So Joey, now that you've done this residency and you've opened up this door, are you going to walk through it? Or are you going to go back?" He's a very New York. outspoken, no nonsense guy? Or are you going to go back and make fluff art? What are you going to do? And so that was me walking through the door to do a subject matter that was profound and a statement.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about your own discrimination, and obviously, queer artists face a lot of backlash for their art. How do you navigate that criticism, and what advice would you give to artists facing similar challenges?
You know, luckily, I haven't felt a lot of backlash towards the things that I've done. Um, Surprisingly, I keep waiting for some rude comment or something posted. You never know. But I think my audience that follows me is all they're plugged into what I'm doing. And
Hmm.
sometimes I'll post something political on my story that has to do with our community or transgender. And I notice I lose some people, and that's fine. You can
Yeah.
go away if you can't handle it. So I haven't experienced anything. I think there's less openness from a commercial standpoint with some galleries to not want to tackle the subject matter because it may not be commercial or financially successful, right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes like the piece behind me, it's a guy putting on lipstick. There's not going to be a lot of people that want to buy that. So sometimes the work when I do shows, I know that I'm doing the work because I want to talk about this and it's not for the financial gain, even though as an artist I need to make money, but I have other work that's, I would say, more commercial. I hate using that term, but that appeals to a broader audience and you have to think about those things. But when I do a show that's talking about a subject matter that might be challenging for some people or not as popular, I have to know that that's show may not be a financial success. But it's still important to do it.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the works that you have behind you. Are these part of an exhibit that you've done before, or are these new
Uh,
works?
they're just most of the work's out into the universe right now, thankfully. And these are like remnants of other shows sitting around. And this particular one's been in at least 3 shows.
Uh-huh.
So he's retired. I think but he's available. He's one of my favorites.
He's had his time in the spotlight.
Yeah, he's had his time, but it's going to take a special buyer. It's a really edgy. I don't find it edgy, but other people do. But I have a broader scope of what's edgy. So
And the one over your left shoulder with the woman with
yeah,
glasses?
that's her name's Jess Garland. She's a local musician and um she's all about social justice. She has a amazing nonprofit called Heartstrings where she teaches young people that don't have access to music to teach drums and guitar and all that. So she's a amazing, hardworking, cool human. So I've done several portraits of her, and one of the portraits I did of her was on the Pendry, West Hollywood. They have a 7-foot, 7-story digital billboard on one side of the hotel, and then a vertical one on the horizontal one on the other. And it's right on Sunset Boulevard. And I had the honor of being on there twice for a month each time. And she was one of the people when I was celebrating diversity. But I've also done it for Pride Month as well, where I had trans people and people from the community up there on rotation. And I got to do an artist talk. So she's one of the people that I've done several portraits of because I really admire her and what she's about and what she stands for. And I like to celebrate people for
Yeah.
those reasons. Yeah.
Moving on to kind of your legacy and future aspirations. You've exhibited nationally and internationally. What does success, now that you're a full-time artist, what does success mean to you? And what does it look like? And how do you want to be remembered?
I mean, I think success for me feels very different than when I started. When I first started, I'm self taught. So I was always needing to be acknowledged or accepted in the community. And so I felt like there was a different reason for the things I did then. It was for acknowledgement and to be considered legitimate, right? And I'm past
Hmm.
that now. I'm way past that. And Now it's about, the legacy I want. I want to kind of teeter on the line of, they say artists, so you got to pick your lane. You're going to be a commercial artist, or you're going to be conceptual, or you want to be in museums. Fuck that.
Why can't you do all of
I
that?
want it all. Like,
Yeah.
why can't I do a conceptual, political, or social commentary show? And why can't I do a commercial body of work? Why can't I be in a museum? Why can't I be an entrepreneur? And I think a lot of artists now are taking that back and saying, you know, we're a brand and we can do all those things. I think you just have to own it. But I want to be known. I want people to remember for me for being kind and to lift people up,
Hmm.
um, and hopefully how I made them feel and how the work made them feel. So, obviously financial freedom is the goal too. And so I'm trying to teeter that line, and that's always a tightrope of how you navigate that. I think I'm getting
Hmm.
better 5 years in, but it's not an easy road being an artist. It's really, really a tough
Yeah,
career.
I can
You have
imagine.
to be engaged all the time and put yourself out there. And there's a lot of talented artists, but I think that tenacity is really important and networking. You got to go meet people.
Yep. Shake hands.
So, yeah, you got to shake hands. And so that's what I want my legacy to be. I don't want to be just considered a LGBT plus artist. I'm bigger than that. That's just a part of who I am. But I do want to use my platform when I can to elevate the community and tell stories and to bring up subject matter that's important to me while also navigating a commercial side that can make me, money to survive and continue to do the work I want to do.
How do you navigate or balance um, keeping your voice and your art consistent across the commercial stuff that you're selling,
Mhm.
but the edgy personal stuff that you're doing too?
Yeah.
How do you keep a consistent voice across all that?
And don't get me wrong, the edgier, you know, socially commentary work sells too.
Yeah,
You know, serious collectors aren't afraid of that.
right.
But you got to appeal to a broad mainstream audience to get more sales, right?
Mhm.
And not everybody's open to that. I think consistency for me is just in the style of my art. I think I have a recognizable style. I've been told that no one's really doing it the way I do it. Like everyone, there's photography, there's stitching everywhere, but the way I integrate it and the way I use the materials is very different. So
Mhm.
I have a recognizable style, and I think that transcends across whatever. Like I do a Western series, it's kind of homage to my Texas background. And I would say that feels a bit more commercial, but it's still people that I meet. They're people of Texas. They're celebrating people. So that common thread runs through all of them, right? And then just my style, it might veer here, a little edgy here. Color palettes change, but it's still me. And
Yeah.
people usually can tell it's me.
To any young queer artists out there struggling with their own self-acceptance, what would you tell them?
I said, the key to it all is self love. And it's taken me 57 years to feel comfortable with that idea, which is better late than never. So
Yeah.
the sooner you can find that and love yourself and know that you are enough and that you don't need to be ashamed about anything, and the sooner your life will open up in exponential ways in all aspects of your life, whether it's your career or family. And don't take any shit from people. If people don't accept you, including your family, bye.
Hi.
Sorry for you.
Yeah.
You know,
It was the
I had
hardest thing
friends
for
like
me
that.
to learn, I think, to was that I could walk away from toxic family.
Mhm.
I didn't have to be close to them because they're family.
Right. And
Um,
sometimes your family is your chosen family.
correct. Especially in the queer world.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky that I was adopted. So I met my biological family about 12 years ago. And I've been so fortunate to have two beautiful families that are supporting and loving. Some people don't even get one.
Mm,
So I'm, I'm a proponent for, if I had to have walked away, I would have, because why would you force someone to love you unconditionally when
yeah.
there's people out there that will? It's just like friends in your life. If they end up being toxic, you got to remove them. They just serve no purpose. And there's so many people that are positive and uplifting that want to lift you up, and you gravitate towards the people that make you feel good, that
Yeah.
are there for you, and that's not always family.
There's a lot to be said for loyalty in friendships, but
Sure.
friendships have to go both ways.
They do,
And when
and
they don't
sometimes,
anymore,
yeah, you gotta, you hold on to it if you can, but sometimes you have to walk away as you grow, and sometimes people can't grow with you. It's hard to release that, but you have to. It's taken me a long time to understand that in myself.
mhm,
But that all comes, and I'll say it again, down to your own self-love. And I think, in our community, it's hard for people to feel that way just because of the discrimination we feel daily, non-acceptance from our families and the religion. It's hard. It's
mhm,
hard to find that. But I tell you, it is the key. And I can tell from my own experience, and I've struggled with it myself, and I've abused myself many years in many different ways because of the lack of self-love. And it makes a difference.
yeah.
And I just want to give her a big old hug and tell me it's okay. It's going to be okay.
RuPaul was right. If you can't love yourself, how are you gonna love
You
somebody
can't love
else?
somebody else. It's
You
so
gotta
true.
start with you first.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true.
All right. So before we wrap up, my favorite part of the show,
Okay.
quick fire round of questions. These are the ones inspired by the Actor Studio, by
Okay.
inside the Actor Studio with a queer
Uh-huh.
creative twist. So it's kind of a lightning round. So you ready?
Okay. Okay. I hope I have the answer. Go ahead.
What artistic trend or cliche do you wish would disappear?
God. Oh, God. Doing the celebrity portrait. No more Andy Warhol. Let it go.
Let
They've
it
been
go, girl.
celebrated
Let
enough.
it go. What fuels your creativity the most?
People.
Nice. You have people in almost all of your works.
Yeah, it's all portrait work
It's
for the
all
most.
portrait work. Yeah.
Yeah.
What sound or noise instantly inspires you?
Inspires. I thought you were gonna say makes you crazy. I can answer that right away. Um Man, you know what I like? I like the Buddhist chants.
I kind of do too. It's
I
very
do. I like to
calming.
meditate. Yeah. And I like to and meditate, and there's some that I listen to, and those feel pretty good. I think Tina Turner had it right when she started.
She did.
Yeah.
Nomyo Renkenkyo.
Yeah, I tried to do it. I can't.
I feel silly doing it, but
Yeah, me too.
so you definitely guessed the next question. What sound or noise completely kills your focus?
My God. We're over in West Dallas, and there's those loud mufflers on the backs of cars. It just cuts through me. I'm just like, why? 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 It's like nails on a chalkboard. I cannot stand it. I think it's sound pollution. It's like unnecessary hyper masculinity. I've got to show you how big my dick is, and I don't know. It drives me crazy.
I never understood how the sound of a loud muffler could be associated with how big my dick is, but
Well,
to
I
each
don't
your
know.
own.
I just feel like they're trying to prove something. I'm
They're
not
trying
sure
to
what.
prove something.
Yeah.
Um, what is your favorite word or phrase or theme to include in your work, literally or metaphorically?
Unapologetic. But there is a quote that came to me in a meditation, and it says, live life in joyful anticipation.
I like that.
Yeah. Also, another one I like is quiet the noise. And that's not just about mufflers, it's also the noise that's in your head.
Yeah, and the noise that's on the internet and then that's
Yeah, like
all
all of the
surrounding us.
yeah, quiet the noise. I've done some pieces and some neon pieces that said quiet the noise.
I
So
like
that's
that.
something I like to interject.
If you could see any queer artist, living or dead, honored with a major public monument, who would it be?
Hmm. I think Robert Mapplethorpe.
I agree.
Yeah.
Big statue of him with the bullwhip
With a bullwhip coming out.
coming out of
Yeah.
his ass on the
Maybe they
National
could do
Mall.
one over in Oak Lawn right there where they have that fountain.
Where they took the statue of Robert E. Lee down, we could put one of Robert
Yeah.
Mapplethorpe.
That would be hilarious.
I bet we can work on that together.
Yeah, we could try. I don't know if we could get it approved.
What is one profession or creative field you could never see yourself in?
never see myself in.
And don't say commercial banking because you've already done that.
I don't even remember that part of my life. When I left it, I left it. Like I was like, did I really spend 20 years of my life doing that? Yeah, I did, but I don't remember it so much. I could never see myself in the medical field. I mean, I couldn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect it, but I could never do it.
I do respect, I have a number of friends in it and I respect that they can do it, but that's not me.
I couldn't do it, but I respect it.
Yeah. If your art could take on a life of its own, what form would it take?
A life of its own. I don't know. I have no idea. You stumped me on this one. A runway model going down Paris runway. I don't know. A life of its own. I don't know.
There you go.
That's the
Wrapped in
superficial.
Mylar.
Yeah, that's right. We can make a Mylar outfit.
And finally, 100 years from now, you may have already answered this a little bit, but 100 years from now, what do you hope your art says about you to those who find it?
I hope they said it's innovative and interesting, although it was not environmentally friendly, because it'll probably still be in existence.
Yep. Well, that's all
Unless
right.
it's burned and melted.
People thousands of years from now are going to need to see your work.
Yeah. So we can say who we were at this time and what we were celebrating.
Well, Joey, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to me. I enjoyed the conversation.
You too, David. I appreciate you
Yeah,
taking the time to talk to me.
thank you. I would love to, reach out and let's go get a drink or a coffee or something. Since we're both in Dallas, would love to talk more to you.
Hell yeah, I'm always up for that. And you'll pull me out of the studio because I'm a workaholic. So
There you
I'm
go.
all in.
All
That'd
right.
be great.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Bye.
Thanks for joining us in this raw conversation. If this artist's work resonates with you, you can find their social media links in the show notes below. And remember, art thrives when we lift each other up. Tag us at Salon Naturel or hashtag #ArtLaRaw with your reactions. We repost listener art every Friday. Unlock uncensored studio tours, erotic art zines, and voting power on future guests by joining our Substack or Patreon. Links below. If this episode sparked something in you, leave a 5-star review with the word RAW in the title. Algorithms hate us, your voice keeps us visible. This episode was produced by Salon Naturel, with editing by David Smith, original theme music by Exicat. And keep making art that terrifies the censors. This is David Smith. Until next time, stay raw, stay rebellious.